Collaboration, communication, and change management are essential elements in fostering a dynamic and resilient workplace. Effective collaboration enables teams to leverage diverse perspectives, drive innovation, and enhance problem-solving capabilities. Clear and open communication ensures that ideas are shared efficiently, reducing misunderstandings and aligning employees toward common goals. In an evolving business environment, change management plays a crucial role in guiding organizations through transitions, helping employees adapt to new strategies, technologies, and market conditions. When these elements are integrated, organizations cultivate a culture of trust, adaptability, and continuous improvement, leading to stronger teamwork, increased productivity, and long-term success. Building a high-functioning workplace requires a foundation of strong collaboration where individuals work cohesively toward shared goals. Effective collaboration fosters innovation, enhances problem-solving, and strengthens relationships by leveraging the diverse skills and perspectives of a team. Open communication plays a critical role in ensuring transparency, trust, and alignment, allowing employees to navigate challenges with clarity and confidence. A workplace that prioritizes collaboration creates an environment where employees feel valued, motivated, and empowered to contribute their best efforts. By fostering teamwork, organizations can drive efficiency, adaptability, and long-term success in an increasingly complex and fast-paced business landscape. Summary of Rethinking Workplace Collaboration, an old topic with a practical view. The article Rethinking Workplace Collaboration, an old topic with a practical view examines workplace collaboration from a practitioner's perspective rather than a purely theoretical one. While collaboration is commonly praised in management research for improving productivity, innovation, and employee engagement, the authors argue that real-world collaboration often creates unintended problems that organizations overlook. The purpose of the study is not to reject collaboration entirely, but to challenge the assumption that more collaboration always leads to better outcomes. The authors use an ethnographic research approach, relying on direct field observations and interviews across 3 organizations: a large global consulting firm, a US-based startup, and an established nonprofit organization. These organizations varied in size, industry, and mission, but all emphasized collaboration and innovation. Interviewees included employees at multiple levels, such as developers, managers, analysts, and directors, which allowed the researchers to capture a broad range of experiences. Key findings: 3 major drawbacks of workplace collaboration. The study identifies 3 major unintended consequences of excessive or poorly structured collaboration. 1. Repetitive and excessive meetings. One major drawback is the rise of repetitive meetings, especially in organizations that heavily rely on agile methodologies. While agile is designed to improve collaboration through frequent communication and short development cycles, employees reported attending as many as 20 to 30 meetings within a 2-week period. Many of these meetings involved the same people discussing the same issues in slightly different formats. As a result, employees felt overwhelmed, stressed, and left with less time to complete actual work. Managers also experienced burnout due to constant meeting demands. The authors argue that excessive collaboration through meetings can reduce productivity instead of improving it. To address this issue, the article suggests that organizations evaluate the purpose and usefulness of each meeting. Teams should reduce or eliminate redundant meetings and replace them with asynchronous tools such as email or task tracking software. Anonymously ranking meetings by usefulness can help teams identify which meetings provide the least value. 2. Collaboration slowing business processes. The second drawback is that collaboration can slow down business processes. The authors provide examples such as customer service call triaging, peer reviews, and multi-step approvals. While these processes are meant to improve quality and accuracy, they often add unnecessary steps and delays. One example involved a consulting firm responding to a government proposal where team members were required to peer review each other's work regardless of expertise. This resulted in unhelpful feedback, wasted time, and little improvement in quality. Another example from the nonprofit sector showed that too many rounds of review caused a fundraising email to miss its deadline entirely. The authors argue that peer review and collaboration should only be used when the quality benefit outweighs the time and resource cost. They recommend asking 3 questions before requiring collaboration. Is the work important enough to justify review? Are reviewers qualified to provide meaningful feedback? Is there enough time to revise the work properly? If the answer to any of these is no, collaboration may do more harm than good. 3. Loss of recognition and accountability. The third major issue is that collaboration can misplace recognition and reduce accountability. The study describes situations where lower-level employees contributed the most innovative ideas, yet upper management received credit for the final outcome. This led to frustration, reduced morale, and decreased motivation among employees. The article also discusses the free rider problem, where some individuals benefit from group success without contributing equally. When recognition is unclear and accountability is weak, employees may hesitate to invest effort in future collaborative projects. In some cases, leadership received praise when projects succeeded but distanced themselves when projects failed, leaving team members vulnerable to layoffs or blame. To fix this issue, the authors recommend giving clear recognition to individual contributors, protecting contributors from unfair consequences, and using tools such as 360-degree performance reviews. Recognition should be meaningful and visible, such as bonuses, time off, or public acknowledgement. How to collaborate more effectively. The article concludes by offering a practical framework for better collaboration based on the 3 R's requirements, responsibilities, and rules. Requirements. Teams must clearly understand the outcome they are trying to achieve. Responsibilities. Each person should know their role and others' roles with minimal overlap. Rules. Collaboration should operate within clear boundaries, such as timelines, budgets, and regulations. The authors emphasize that collaboration is a tool, not a goal. More collaboration is not always better. Instead, collaboration should be intentional, outcome-focused, and limited to situations where it clearly adds value. Conclusion. The article concludes that while collaboration remains important, it should not be treated as a universal solution to organizational problems. Excessive meetings, slowed processes, and unclear accountability can reduce efficiency and employee satisfaction. Organizations should rethink how and when collaboration is used and focus on quality, clarity, and accountability rather than volume. When applied thoughtfully, collaboration can support productivity and innovation. When applied blindly, it can become a barrier to success. Summary of preparing students to collaborate in the virtual work world. The article Preparing Students to Collaborate in the Virtual Work World examines the growing importance of virtual collaboration in modern organizations and argues that higher education must better prepare students for this reality. As workplaces increasingly rely on digital communication tools and geographically dispersed teams, the ability to collaborate effectively in a virtual environment has become a critical professional skill. The authors focus on why virtual collaboration is now common, what challenges it creates, and how educators can help students build the skills needed to succeed in virtual work settings. The rise of virtual collaboration in the workplace. The authors explain that several workplace trends have led to a rapid increase in virtual collaboration. These include advances in communication technology, the global expansion of organizations, the rise of remote and flexible work arrangements, and the growing reliance on teams rather than individual work. Tools such as email, discussion boards, wikis, blogs, mobile devices, and web-based collaboration platforms have made it easier for employees to work together across time and distance. Virtual collaboration offers many benefits to organizations. It allows access to a broader and more diverse workforce, reduces travel and facility costs, improves productivity, and enables organizations to use employee expertise more efficiently. Virtual teams can also increase innovation by bringing together individuals with different perspectives and backgrounds. However, the authors stress that these benefits only occur when employees have the skills to collaborate effectively in virtual environments. Challenges of virtual collaboration. The article highlights that virtual collaboration is fundamentally different from face-to-face teamwork. Employees in virtual teams often struggle with communication delays, lack of nonverbal cues, difficulty building trust, and uncertainty about roles and responsibilities. Without informal interactions such as hallway conversations or spontaneous discussions, resolving issues can take much longer. The authors note that virtual teams can experience lower motivation, weaker engagement, and reduced decision quality if team members are not well prepared. Research cited in the article shows that individuals collaborating virtually may make poorer decisions than those working face-to-face, particularly when communication is unclear or trust is low. These challenges make it clear that virtual collaboration requires specific skills and experience rather than just familiarity with technology. Implications for college graduates. The article argues that upcoming college graduates are likely to enter workplaces where virtual collaboration is unavoidable. While many students are comfortable using technology in their personal lives, this does not mean they are skilled at using technology for professional collaboration. Students often use digital tools for social networking, research, or entertainment, but they may lack experience applying these tools to shared work tasks, coordination, and decision-making. Research discussed in the article shows that students frequently overestimate their ability to collaborate virtually. Even when students are familiar with tools such as wikis or online platforms, they may not understand how to use them effectively for collaboration. As a result, employers may face challenges when hiring graduates who are not prepared for virtual teamwork. The role of educators in building virtual collaboration skills. The authors emphasize that higher education has a responsibility to help students develop virtual collaboration skills. They argue that these skills should be taught across disciplines, similar to writing or oral communication skills. The most effective way to develop virtual collaboration abilities is through experiential learning, where students practice collaborating virtually in realistic settings. Virtual collaboration skills are not entirely new skills. Rather, students must learn how to apply existing skills, such as communication, time management, project management, and teamwork, within a virtual environment. Classroom assignments that require online collaboration can simulate real workplace conditions and help students gain practical experience. Case study: a course-based virtual collaboration assignment. To demonstrate how students can develop virtual collaboration skills, the article presents a case study involving 66 undergraduate students from 2 universities located in different regions of the United States. Students were placed into virtual teams and assigned a research project that required collaboration entirely through technology. All communication occurred online, and none of the students had prior experience with virtual collaboration. The teams used a web-based project management tool to coordinate tasks, share documents, and communicate. The assignment lasted 6 weeks and required students to research labor market conditions in 2 different regions and produce a joint report. Students also completed reflection papers to evaluate their experiences and learning outcomes. Outcomes of the virtual collaboration project. The results showed that students developed important skills related to communication, teamwork, technology use, project management, and leadership. Many students initially struggled with communication delays, unfamiliar technology, and lack of face-to-face interaction. Over time, students adapted by finding alternative communication methods, setting clearer deadlines, and establishing shared responsibilities. Participants reported improvements in patience, adaptability, time management, and written communication. They also learned to work with different personalities and work styles, which mirrors real-world professional experiences. Although the project was challenging, most students viewed it as a valuable learning experience that prepared them for future virtual work environments. Lessons learned and recommendations. The authors conclude that virtual collaboration assignments should be carefully structured to support learning. Projects should be meaningful but not overly punitive in grading, allowing students to experiment and learn from mistakes. Instructors should provide clear guidance on both the technology and the collaboration process and allow sufficient time for teams to develop effective working relationships. Reflection is identified as a critical component of learning, as it helps students recognize what strategies worked and what did not. The authors also suggest that virtual collaboration skills may transfer to improved face-to-face teamwork, as students learn to communicate clearly and manage conflict without relying on nonverbal cues. Conclusion. The article concludes that virtual collaboration is now a core workplace skill, and higher education must adapt to prepare students for this reality. While students may be comfortable with technology, they often lack experience using it effectively for collaboration. Providing students with structured, experiential virtual collaboration opportunities in the classroom can help them build the skills, confidence, and adaptability needed to succeed in modern, technology-driven workplaces. Summary of building collaboration in teams through emotional intelligence, mediation by SOAR. This academic article examines how emotional intelligence, EI, influences collaboration in teams and explores whether a strengths-based strategic framework known as SOAR, strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results, helps explain that relationship. As organizations increasingly rely on both face-to-face and virtual teams, understanding what drives effective collaboration has become critical for team performance and organizational success. Purpose and research focus. The main purpose of the study is to determine whether emotional intelligence among team members improves collaboration and whether SOAR acts as a mediating mechanism that explains how emotional intelligence leads to better collaborative outcomes. The authors focus on professionals working in real organizational teams rather than students or simulations, making the findings relevant to practical business settings. Specifically, the study investigates whether emotional intelligence positively affects team collaboration, whether the type of team, face-to-face versus virtual, changes the strength of this relationship, whether SOAR mediates the relationship between emotional intelligence and collaboration. Key concepts. Emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and use emotions effectively in oneself and others. In teams, emotional intelligence helps individuals regulate conflict, communicate clearly, and build trust. Team collaboration refers to team members working together towards shared goals and includes inclusion, integration of ideas, compromise, and open communication. SOAR is a positive, strengths-based strategic framework that emphasizes identifying what teams do well, strengths, where they can grow, opportunities, what they want to achieve, aspirations, and how success will be measured, results. Unlike traditional problem-focused models, SOAR focuses on generative dialogue and future-oriented thinking. Research design and methodology. The authors used a quantitative survey design and collected data from 308 professionals working in teams across multiple industries. Participants were recruited through LinkedIn and included individuals from business, government, and academia. Both face-to-face and virtual team members were represented. Participants completed validated survey instruments measuring emotional intelligence, team collaboration, and SOAR practices. Statistical analyses included regression analysis and structural equation modeling to test direct relationships, moderation by team type, and mediation by SOAR. Key findings. Emotional intelligence and collaboration. The study found a strong positive relationship between emotional intelligence and collaboration. Team members with higher emotional intelligence were more likely to engage in effective communication, compromise, and integration of ideas. Emotional intelligence alone explained a significant portion of the variation in collaboration levels. Face-to-face versus virtual teams. Team type was found to moderate the relationship between emotional intelligence and collaboration. While emotional intelligence positively affected collaboration in both face-to-face and virtual teams, the relationship was stronger in face-to-face teams. This suggests that emotional cues and interpersonal awareness may be easier to apply when team members interact in person, though emotional intelligence remains important in virtual settings as well. SOAR as a mediator. One of the most important findings is that SOAR partially mediates the relationship between emotional intelligence and collaboration. This means that emotionally intelligent team members are more likely to engage in strengths-based thinking and dialogue, which in turn improves collaboration. Three SOAR elements, strengths, aspirations, and results, were particularly important in explaining how emotional intelligence leads to better collaboration. Opportunities alone did not significantly mediate the relationship, suggesting that collaboration improves most when teams focus on what they do well, share a clear vision of the future, and work toward measurable outcomes. Practical implications. The findings suggest that organizations seeking to improve collaboration should invest in both emotional intelligence development and SOAR-based strategic practices. Leaders and consultants can improve collaboration by training team members to increase self-awareness and emotional regulation, encouraging open dialogue focused on strengths and shared goals, using SOAR as a framework for team planning and decision-making, coaching teams to build trust, manage conflict, and maintain accountability. These strategies are applicable to both face-to-face and virtual teams and can help organizations improve performance, innovation, and cohesion. Limitations and future research. The study relies on self-reported data, which may introduce bias. The authors recommend future research use team-level analysis, independent observers, and alternative measures of emotional intelligence. They also note that emotional intelligence could be misused for manipulation, which warrants further study. Additionally, because SOAR only partially mediated the relationship, other mechanisms may also explain how emotional intelligence affects collaboration. Conclusion. The article concludes that emotional intelligence is a key driver of effective team collaboration and that SOAR provides a valuable framework for turning emotional intelligence into positive collaborative outcomes. By focusing on strengths, shared aspirations, and results, teams can create a positive and inclusive environment that supports both collaboration and performance. The study reinforces the idea that collaboration does not happen automatically. It must be intentionally supported through emotional awareness and structured, strengths-based practices. A high-functioning workplace thrives on collaboration, where individuals unite their skills, knowledge, and perspectives to achieve shared success. When teamwork is prioritized, innovation flourishes, problem-solving becomes more effective, and organizational goals are met with greater efficiency. Open communication and mutual trust strengthen relationships, creating an environment where employees feel valued and motivated to contribute their best work. By fostering a culture of collaboration, organizations enhance adaptability, productivity, and long-term growth, ensuring they remain resilient in an ever-evolving business landscape. Effective communication in the workplace is crucial for closing gaps, enhancing collaboration, minimizing misunderstandings, and fostering a more inclusive and productive environment. Clear and effective communication recognizes diverse perspectives, fostering alignment and enhancing clarity among team members. When employees feel heard and understood, trust is strengthened, and a culture of openness and mutual respect is established. By encouraging dialogue, active listening, and transparency, organizations can break down barriers, enhance teamwork, and drive innovation. A workplace that prioritizes strong communication is better equipped to navigate challenges, adapt to change, and achieve long-term success. Summary of Rethinking Workplace Collaboration, an old topic with a practical view. This article examines workplace collaboration from a practical, real-world perspective rather than treating collaboration as an automatic solution to organizational problems. While collaboration is often promoted as a way to increase productivity, engagement, and innovation, the authors argue that too much or poorly structured collaboration can actually harm performance. The purpose of the study is to highlight unintended consequences of collaboration and provide practical guidance for improving how collaboration is used in organizations. Research approach. The authors use an ethnographic and practitioner-focused approach, drawing on direct observations and interviews from 3 different organizations: a large global consulting firm, a US-based startup, a US-based nonprofit organization. Participants included employees at multiple levels, such as developers, managers, analysts, and directors. This approach allowed the authors to capture how collaboration works in day-to-day practice rather than how it is described in theory. Key findings: 3 major problems with collaboration. 1. Excessive and repetitive meetings. One of the most common problems identified is meeting overload, especially in organizations using agile methods. Employees reported attending dozens of meetings within short time periods, often with the same participants discussing the same issues repeatedly. Instead of improving coordination, these meetings reduce the time available for actual work and increase stress and burnout. The authors recommend reviewing all recurring meetings to determine their true purpose and value. Meetings that do not clearly contribute to outcomes should be reduced, replaced with asynchronous communication tools, or eliminated altogether. 2. Slowed and inefficient business processes. The second major issue is that collaboration can slow down business processes when too many people are involved. Examples include customer service handoffs, approval chains, and peer review requirements. In many cases, collaboration added steps without improving quality, causing delays and missed deadlines. The article emphasizes that collaboration should be intentional. Before adding peer reviews or approvals, teams should ask whether the task is important enough, whether reviewers are qualified, and whether there is enough time for meaningful feedback. If not, collaboration may be creating inefficiency rather than value. 3. Reduced accountability and misplaced recognition. The third problem is that collaboration can blur accountability and recognition. In several cases, lower-level employees generated key ideas or did most of the work, while senior leaders received the recognition. This misallocation of credit reduced morale and discouraged future innovation. The authors also describe a free rider problem, where some individuals benefit from team success without contributing equally. When accountability is unclear, employees may feel unmotivated or hesitant to take ownership of outcomes. Recommendations for better collaboration. Rather than rejecting collaboration, the authors argue for smarter collaboration. They propose focusing collaboration around 3 core elements, called the 3 Rs. Requirements. Clearly define the goal or outcome of the collaboration. Responsibilities. Clearly assign ownership so everyone knows who is responsible for what. Rules. Establish boundaries such as timelines, decision authority, and communication norms. They also stress that collaboration should be outcome-focused, not collaboration for its own sake. Fewer meetings, fewer participants, and clearer roles often lead to better results. Conclusion. The article concludes that collaboration is a tool, not a goal. While collaboration can support innovation and teamwork, excessive or poorly designed collaboration leads to inefficiency, stress, and reduced accountability. Organizations should move away from the assumption that more collaboration is always better and instead apply collaboration selectively, with clear structure and purpose. When used intentionally, collaboration can add value. When overused, it becomes a barrier to effective work. Summary of Bridging the Gap: Exploring the Impact of Human Capital Management on Employee Performance Through Work Engagement, 2024. This article investigates how human capital management practices, HCMPs, influence employee performance, with a specific focus on work engagement as the key mechanism linking the two. The study is set in the hospitality industry in South Africa, an industry known for high employee turnover, demanding working conditions, and persistent engagement challenges. The authors argue that improving employee performance requires more than policies alone. It requires engaging employees in a meaningful way. Purpose of the study. The primary aim of the study is to examine whether work engagement fully mediates the relationship between HCMPs and employee performance. In other words, the research tests whether human capital practices improve performance because they increase employee engagement. The authors focus on 3 specific HCMPs: training, career opportunities, and rewards, and analyze their effect on 3 dimensions of employee performance: task performance, adaptive performance, contextual performance. Theoretical framework. The study is grounded in 2 key theories. Human capital theory. This theory suggests that employees are valuable organizational assets and that investment in their skills, development, and well-being leads to higher productivity and performance. When employees perceive that management is investing in them through training, rewards, and career development, they are more motivated to perform well. Job demands, resources, JDR, model, motivational pathway. The JDR model explains how job resources, such as training, rewards, and growth opportunities, boost motivation and engagement. According to this model, job resources increase work engagement, which then leads to improved performance outcomes. The study positions HCMPs as job resources and work engagement as the motivational link to performance. Key concepts explained. Human capital management practices. HCMP's organizational practices aimed at developing and motivating employees, operationalized in this study as training, career opportunities, and rewards. Work engagement, a positive, fulfilling work-related state characterized by vigor, dedication, and absorption. Employee performance, measured across 3 areas: task performance, doing core job duties well; adaptive performance, handling change and new situations; and contextual performance, extra-role behaviors such as helping others. Research methodology. Data were collected from 273 full-time hotel employees across multiple roles and management levels in South Africa. The study used a quantitative survey design and analyzed the data using partial least squares structural equation modeling, (PLS-SEM). Reliability, validity, and mediation analyses were conducted to test the proposed hypotheses. Major findings. HCMPs positively influence work engagement. Training, career opportunities, and rewards were found to significantly increase employee work engagement. Among these, rewards emerged as the strongest indicator, followed by training and career opportunities. This indicates that employees become more engaged when they feel recognized, developed, and supported by management. Work engagement positively influences employee performance. Work engagement had a significant positive effect on all 3 types of performance. Employees who were engaged performed their core tasks better. Engaged employees adapted more effectively to changes. Engaged employees were more likely to go beyond formal job requirements and support the organization. Work engagement fully mediates the HCMP performance relationship. One of the most important findings is that work engagement fully mediates the relationship between HCMPs and employee performance. This means that HCMPs do not directly improve performance unless they first increase engagement. Without engagement, the impact of training, rewards, and career opportunities on performance is limited. Practical implications. The study highlights that organizations, especially in the hospitality industry, should not view HCMPs as isolated administrative practices. Instead, they should be implemented strategically to foster engagement. Managers are encouraged to invest in continuous and relevant training programs, create visible and fair career growth pathways, implement reward systems that recognize both effort and performance. Engaged employees are more productive, adaptable, and willing to exhibit positive behaviors that enhance service quality and organizational success. Contributions of the study. This research contributes to the literature by empirically demonstrating work engagement as a full mediator between HCMPs and performance, providing evidence from a developing country context, which is underrepresented in engagement research, offering practical insights for managers seeking to improve retention and performance through human capital investments, limitations, and future research. The authors acknowledge that the study is cross-sectional, meaning it captures data at one point in time and cannot establish causality. They recommend future longitudinal studies and the inclusion of additional HCMPs such as work-life balance, job security, and teamwork. Using multiple data sources beyond self-reports is also suggested. Conclusion. The article concludes that human capital management practices improve employee performance only when they successfully increase work engagement. Training, rewards, and career opportunities act as job resources that energize employees, leading them to perform better and contribute more fully to their organizations. For industries facing engagement and retention challenges, investing in HCMPs with a strong focus on engagement is essential for sustainable performance improvement. Summary of Exploring Team Collaboration in the Metaverse from a Human Capital Perspective, 2024. This research paper examines how team collaboration in the metaverse affects human capital development in organizations. The authors compare collaboration using virtual reality, VR, technologies in the metaverse with traditional video conferencing tools to understand whether immersive environments can better support teamwork, social interaction, and long-term organizational capability building. The study contributes empirical evidence to a research area that has largely been theoretical. Purpose of the study. The primary goal of the study is to investigate how the metaverse reshapes virtual team collaboration and whether it offers advantages over conventional video conferencing for developing human capital. Specifically, the authors explore whether immersive VR environments enhance team collaboration quality, social presence among team members, immersion and focus on shared tasks, nonverbal communication. The central research question asks how the metaverse influences human capital development by changing the way virtual teams collaborate. Theoretical foundation. The study integrates three major research streams. Human capital theory. Human capital is defined as the collective knowledge, skills, and abilities of employees that contribute to organizational performance. The authors argue that human capital is not developed solely through individual talent, but through effective team collaboration, where shared learning and interaction amplify individual capabilities. Team collaboration in virtual teams. Virtual teams rely heavily on technology to coordinate tasks and share knowledge. While video conferencing tools enable communication, they often limit social cues, informal interaction, and trust building, which are essential for collaboration and human capital growth. Metaverse and immersive technologies. The metaverse is conceptualized as an immersive digital environment enabled by VR technologies, where users interact through avatars in shared virtual spaces. These environments can simulate face-to-face interactions more closely than traditional online tools, potentially improving collaboration. Research design and methodology. The authors conducted a controlled laboratory experiment using a between-subjects design. 15 participants were divided into 5 teams, with 3 teams collaborating in a VR-based metaverse environment, Meta Horizon workrooms, and 2 teams collaborating via Zoom video conferencing. Participants completed the Lost on the Moon exercise, a NASA-validated team decision-making task. Data were collected using audio and video recordings of team interactions, quantitative surveys measuring collaboration, immersion, and social presence, qualitative open-ended feedback from participants. A mixed methods approach allowed the authors to triangulate behavioral observations with survey and interview data. Key findings. Immersion. Teams collaborating in the metaverse experienced significantly higher levels of immersion compared to video conferencing teams. Participants in VR reported being more focused on the task and less distracted by their physical surroundings. The immersive environment helped participants mentally enter the collaboration space, improving concentration and engagement. Social presence. The metaverse increased participants' sense of social presence, the feeling of being together with teammates. VR participants experienced more natural interaction, spatial awareness, and attentiveness to one another. Survey results showed statistically higher social presence scores in VR compared to video conferencing. Team collaboration. While overall collaboration scores did not differ significantly between VR and video conferencing across all teams, qualitative evidence suggested more consistent collaboration quality in VR teams. VR teams displayed stronger mutual support, commitment, coordination, and shared focus. Video conferencing teams showed greater variability, with some teams experiencing lower engagement and weaker interaction. Nonverbal communication. The metaverse enabled forms of nonverbal communication such as gestures, head movements, spatial positioning, and directional voice cues. These features helped clarify communication and fostered more natural interactions. However, limitations in avatar realism, especially facial expressions, sometimes reduced interpretability, highlighting areas for technological improvement. Implications for human capital development. The study demonstrates that the metaverse can support human capital development by enhancing collaborative dynamics in virtual teams. Increased immersion and social presence allow team members to exchange knowledge more effectively, build trust, and remain engaged. These factors are critical for developing collective skills and long-term organizational capability. Practical implications. For organizations, the findings suggest that the metaverse can be a valuable alternative or complement to video conferencing for collaboration-intensive work. However, adoption requires investment in VR infrastructure, training and technical support for employees, careful design of virtual collaboration spaces. When implemented thoughtfully, immersive environments can improve motivation, engagement, and collaboration outcomes, particularly for distributed teams. Limitations and future research. The authors acknowledge several limitations, including the small sample size, short-term experimental design, and novelty effects associated with VR use. Future research is encouraged to conduct longitudinal studies to assess long-term impact. Examine collaboration among unfamiliar team members. Compare different VR and AR platforms. Investigate potential downsides such as cognitive overload or collaboration fatigue. Conclusion. The study concludes that the metaverse shows strong potential as a tool for enhancing virtual team collaboration and supporting human capital development. While not a universal replacement for traditional tools, immersive VR environments can create more engaging, socially rich, and focused collaboration experiences. With continued technological improvements and thoughtful organizational implementation, the metaverse may play a meaningful role in the future of work and team collaboration. Bridging gaps in the workplace through communication fosters understanding, alignment, and stronger relationships among employees. Clear and open dialogue minimizes misunderstandings, encourages collaboration, and ensures that diverse perspectives are acknowledged and valued. When communication is prioritized, teams become more cohesive, problem-solving becomes more effective, and workplace conflicts are reduced. A culture that embraces transparent and inclusive communication builds trust, enhances engagement, and promotes a shared sense of purpose. By actively addressing gaps through meaningful conversations and active listening, organizations create an environment where employees feel heard, respected, and empowered to contribute to collective success. Change management is essential for helping organizations navigate transitions, adapt to new challenges, and remain competitive in an evolving business landscape. Successful change initiatives require clear communication, strong leadership, and a strategic approach to guiding employees through periods of uncertainty. By fostering a culture of adaptability and resilience, organizations can minimize resistance, encourage collaboration, and ensure that employees feel supported throughout the process. When change is managed effectively, businesses can drive innovation, improve efficiency, and create sustainable growth, ensuring long-term success in an ever-changing environment. Summary of change management through leadership: the mediating role of organizational culture, 2017. This study examines how change-oriented leadership influences change management in organizations and how organizational culture mediates this relationship. The research focuses on public sector service organizations in the United Arab Emirates, UAE, a context characterized by rapid economic and institutional change and a strong governmental role in organizational transformation. Purpose of the study. The main objectives of the study are to examine the direct impact of change leadership on change management, analyze the influence of organizational culture on both planned and emergent change, determine whether organizational culture mediates the relationship between leadership and change management. The study addresses a gap in the literature concerning how leadership affects organizational culture and how culture, in turn, shapes change outcomes, particularly in the UAE public sector. Theoretical background. The study draws on established theories of leadership, organizational culture, and change management. Change leadership is framed as a set of behaviors and competencies that enable leaders to guide organizations through uncertainty, reduce resistance, and motivate employees. Organizational culture is conceptualized using the competing values framework, which categorizes culture into clan, adhocracy, and hierarchy cultures. Change management is divided into two types. Planned change, which is intentional and directed by senior management. Emergent change, which evolves gradually through learning, adaptation, and interaction with the environment. Research design and methodology. The researchers collected survey data from 210 middle management employees across 8 public sector organizations in the UAE. Established measurement scales were used to assess change leadership, organizational culture, and change management practices. Data were analyzed using confirmatory factor analysis, CFA, and structural equation modeling, SM, to test the proposed hypotheses and mediation effects. Key findings: change leadership and change management. Change leadership was found to have a positive and significant effect on organizational culture and on both planned and emergent change. However, the direct effect of leadership was stronger for emergent change than for planned change. This suggests that leadership behaviors are particularly important when change arises from adaptation and learning rather than formal planning. Organizational culture and change management. Among the 3 cultural types examined, hierarchical culture had the strongest and most significant impact on both planned and emergent change. Hierarchical culture, characterized by control, formal procedures, consistency, and coordination, was found to be especially effective in supporting change management in UAE public sector organizations. In contrast, clan culture, collaboration and trust, and adhocracy culture, innovation and flexibility, showed positive but non-significant effects on change management. Mediating role of organizational culture. The results show that organizational culture partially mediates the relationship between change leadership and change management. Specifically, hierarchical culture acts as a key mediator, strengthening the effect of leadership on both planned and emergent change. This means that leadership influences change outcomes more effectively when supported by a culture that emphasizes structure, control, and consistency. Discussion. The findings suggest that while leadership is essential for driving change, its effectiveness depends heavily on the underlying organizational culture. In the UAE public sector, hierarchical structures appear to facilitate change by providing clarity, stability, and formal authority. This challenges the common assumption that flexible or innovation-driven cultures are always best for change management. The study also highlights the importance of aligning leadership behaviors with cultural context. Change initiatives that ignore cultural realities are more likely to face resistance and fail. Practical implications. For managers and policymakers in the UAE public sector, the study emphasizes the importance of change-oriented leadership in guiding organizational transformation, the need to recognize and leverage hierarchical cultural elements when managing change, the value of aligning leadership strategies with existing cultural norms to improve change effectiveness and sustainability, limitations and future research. The study focuses only on public sector organizations and organizational level variables. Future research could include private sector organizations for comparative analysis. Examine individual and group-level factors. Explore whether similar cultural effects occur in other national contexts. Conclusion. The study concludes that change leadership positively influences change management, but its impact is significantly shaped by organizational culture. In the UAE public sector, hierarchical culture plays a dominant mediating role, enabling leaders to manage both planned and emergent change more effectively. Understanding and aligning leadership with organizational culture is therefore critical for successful and sustainable change management. Summary of how do businesses utilize change management for process optimization. Purpose and scope. This paper presents a systematic literature review examining how change management, CM, is used to support process optimization across different industrial sectors. The authors analyze 176 peer-reviewed studies to understand which change management strategies are applied during process optimization, which research methods are most commonly used, how applications differ across industries and countries. The study addresses a key gap in the literature. Although change management and process optimization are widely studied independently, few works analyze their interaction together. Methodology. The authors conducted a structured review using Scopus and Web of Science, narrowing an initial pool of over 900 papers to 176 relevant studies. The selected papers were analyzed through descriptive statistics, cross-analysis, research method times industry sector, content analysis of the most influential papers, keyword analysis to identify dominant and emerging themes. Research methods were classified into categories such as empirical research, statistical analysis, mathematical modeling, simulation, conceptual studies, and hybrid approaches. Key findings. 1. Change management is primarily practical, not theoretical. The review shows a strong shift toward empirical and data-driven research, confirming that change management is now treated as a practical managerial discipline rather than a purely conceptual one. Empirical research is the most common approach. Statistical analyses and mathematical models are increasingly used to validate change initiatives. Purely conceptual papers are relatively rare. 2. Industry context strongly shapes change management approaches. Different sectors rely on different combinations of change management and optimization tools. Healthcare, largest share of studies. Focus on employee involvement, leadership, communication, and resistance reduction. Change management is critical for introducing new technologies, clinical protocols, and digital systems while maintaining patient safety and care quality. Manufacturing and engineering. Heavy use of mathematical models, simulation, and optimization algorithms. Change management supports complex technical changes such as product redesign, Industry 4.0 adoption, and production system transformation. ICT, information and communication technology. Emphasis on ERP implementation, system integration, and organizational readiness. Success depends on balancing technological change with human and cultural factors. Service and public sector. Strong reliance on empirical studies and statistical analysis. Cultural resistance, bureaucracy, and stakeholder engagement are key challenges. Energy and logistics. Change management supports sustainability transitions, digitalization, and supply chain optimization. Gradual, non-disruptive change strategies are favored to reduce resistance. 3. Human and cultural factors are central to process optimization. Across all sectors, successful process optimization depends less on technical solutions alone and more on leadership commitment, clear communication, employee involvement and training, supportive organizational culture, managing resistance to change. Change initiatives that ignore behavioral and cultural dimensions frequently fail, reinforcing the well-known high failure rate of improvement initiatives. 4. Digital technologies enable but do not replace change management. Digital tools such as ERP systems, IT, BM, simulation models, and data analytics are widely used to support optimization. However, the review emphasizes that technology does not replace existing processes automatically. Change management is required to redesign workflows, realign roles, and ensure acceptance. Digital transformation succeeds only when paired with strong CM practices. 5. Emerging trends. Hybrid research methods, combining qualitative, quantitative, and modeling approaches, are increasing, reflecting the growing complexity of organizational change. Simulation and optimization models are increasingly used to test change scenarios before implementation. Healthcare and manufacturing dominate recent research, especially after COVID-19. Theoretical and practical contributions. Theoretical contributions demonstrates that process optimization and change management must be studied jointly, not separately. Highlights the importance of validating conceptual CM models through real-world implementation. Shows how industry context influences the effectiveness of change management strategies. Practical implications. For managers and organizations, change management should be integrated into process optimization projects from the start. One-size-fits-all approaches do not work. Industry-specific strategies are essential. Investments in technology must be accompanied by training, communication, and cultural alignment. Empirical evaluation, data, metrics, simulation improves decision-making and reduces failure risk. Limitations and future research. The authors note that many studies still report unsatisfactory implementation outcomes. More longitudinal and empirical research is needed. Future work should better correlate specific change management practices with performance outcomes. Cross-country and regulatory comparisons would deepen understanding. Conclusion. The paper concludes that change management is a critical enabler of process optimization, not a secondary activity. Its effectiveness depends on aligning technical optimization methods with human, cultural, and organizational factors. Businesses that successfully integrate these dimensions are better positioned to adapt, innovate, and remain competitive across industries. Summary of Change Your Space, Change Your Culture. Purpose. This paper explores how physical workspace changes can be used as a strategic tool for organizational change and why such initiatives often fail. The authors challenge the deterministic belief that new office concepts automatically produce desired cultural or behavioral outcomes. Instead, they argue that success depends on how employees interpret, experience, and assign meaning to spatial changes. Research approach. The study is a case-based literature review drawing on environmental psychology, organizational change management, corporate real estate and facilities management, organizational branding and symbolism. The analysis synthesizes empirical case studies and theory to identify key challenges in spatial change management. Core argument. Workspace change can act as a catalyst for organizational change, but it is not sufficient on its own. Physical space interacts with organizational culture, power relations, and ongoing events. When spatial strategies ignore these factors, they risk producing resistance, misinterpretation, and unintended consequences. 3 spatial change management strategies. The authors adopt a framework that views organizational space in 3 complementary ways. 1. Space as functional distance. This perspective treats space as a measurable structure that influences behavior through physical proximity, visibility, pathways, and shared zones. Findings. Reduced distance increases face-to-face interaction and collaboration. Open layouts and shared pathways can promote knowledge sharing. Challenges. Open offices may increase noise, reduce privacy, and raise cognitive workload. Functional changes may clash with existing hierarchies and norms. Without cultural alignment, employees may resist or misuse new spaces. 2. Space as a materialization of power relations. Here, space is viewed as a symbol of hierarchy, control, and organizational values. Findings. Office size, location, and design communicate status and authority. Modern, fun, or non-hierarchical designs aim to signal creativity and autonomy. Challenges. Symbolic messages can backfire if they contradict management behavior. Top-down imposition of playful or flat spaces can generate cynicism. Employees may perceive spatial changes as superficial or manipulative, especially during layoffs or cost-cutting. 3. Space as lived social experience, meaning-making. This perspective emphasizes how space is interpreted and enacted by users. Findings. Employees actively construct meaning from spatial cues, metaphors, and aesthetics. Space influences identity, belonging, engagement, and perceptions of leadership. Narratives embedded in space, e.g., airport, neighborhood, plaza, guide behavior. Challenges. Different stakeholders interpret the same space differently. Designers and managers' intentions may not match employees' experiences. Negative associations with change events, e.g., layoffs, can override positive design intentions. Key challenges identified. The review highlights recurring reasons why spatial change initiatives fail. Poor understanding of employee values and expectations. Lack of attention to meaning-making processes. Conflicting signals between space design and organizational practices. Misalignment between spatial change and broader organizational events. Over-reliance on one spatial strategy instead of an integrated approach. Main contribution. The paper's key contribution is its socio-material perspective, which views space and social practices as inseparable. It argues that spatial change must be context-sensitive and iterative. Success depends on how space is used, interpreted, and lived, not just designed. Integrating functional, symbolic, and experiential perspectives improves outcomes. Practical implications. For managers and workplace designers, treat workspace change as a change management process, not a design project. Actively involve employees in interpretation and adaptation of new spaces. Monitor how space is talked about, used, and emotionally experienced. Align spatial messages with leadership behavior and organizational realities. Conclusion. Changing physical space can support organizational change, but only when meaning-making is managed alongside design. Spatial strategies that ignore social context, culture, and employee interpretation risk reinforcing resistance rather than transformation. Effective spatial change management requires an integrated, socio-material approach grounded in ongoing evaluation and organizational learning. Successful change management enables organizations to stay flexible, resilient, and ready to navigate evolving challenges. By fostering clear communication, strong leadership, and employee engagement, businesses can minimize resistance and create a culture that embraces transformation. When change is managed strategically, organizations not only improve efficiency and innovation, but also strengthen their workforce.